What's going on, guys? Coach Gaglione here. This is another edition of the Powerlifting with the People podcast. I'm your host, Coach Gaglione. We got Joe Gray here today. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Awesome. So, I wanted to get Joe on the podcast because I've been kind of starting to do some little like equipment reviews on a much lower scale, and so I've been following some of Joe's stuff for a while. I also kind of respect him because he's a strong lifter in his own right, and he just got done with your garage gym competition. Excuse me. So, how did that like kind of end up this year? It seems like it's been growing and growing, and
Yeah. Yeah, so the hard part was COVID hit and kind of like created this false sense of hugeness for the home gym community as a whole, right? So we went year one, we had 80 people participate. Year two, we had 200. Year three, which is when COVID hit, we had 1,200. So
yeah.
a huge, just monstrous spike. But it was people that were like dragging their monos from their local gym into their garage because they're like, well, you can't kick me out of my garage, right? You can close down my gym, but you can't. And so then as soon as the COVID restrictions went away, all of them went back to where they were. So we did this huge whew, kind of thing with the graph. The good news so we had about just shy of 500 people who participated in the spring, which is still, I mean, that's a pretty legit powerlifting competition, right? And I think the number came out to about 77% was someone who had competed before, meaning that people are like, hey, I like this, I want to do it again, which is a nice sign. So I think if Instagram and stuff was a little easier in terms of reach, I might find some new people. But yeah, I'm happy. 500 is about my goal number, just to put something on the board and say, hey, hopefully I hit that. So if I'm hovering somewhere around there, I still feel like that's one of the biggest powerlifting meets on the planet, and I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah.
I definitely want to kind of go back to just the idea of this competition in general and training for a goal because I think that's so important. But for people
Yep.
that maybe it's your first time, maybe hearing you just a little bit who you are, where you're from, how you got started
Yeah.
with. Thing.
Sure. Yeah. So Joe Gray, I wear many hats in the home gym community, respond to many names. Gray Matter Lifting, which is the logo behind me, is kind of my personal uh, content creator space. I do product reviews, mostly on that kind of side of the house. Talk about anything from bars to benches to racks to I just did like 6 videos on cable attachments and stuff like that. Kind of a nerd when it comes to that one specifically. I tell people, some people nerd out on like knurling and, sleeves and stuff on a barbell. And I'm like, hey, it angles 3 degrees to the left. I did that cable attachment. So then I've got so I'm a moderator for Reddit, our home gym. I've been doing that since 2018. We have a little over 1 million subscribers. Obviously, that's not all active all the time, but I do a little, very little at this point, button pressing in the back to make sure everything moves forward. We've got a really good team that's there that does a lot of that. I do what I get to say is a lot of the fun stuff. So I schedule AMAs, so ask me anything, as well as do a lot of our kind of community engagement type activities as a moderator there. I run the garage and competition, so been running that since 2018. I am the creator, founder, main dude behind the scenes. There's a couple of people who help me, like my daughter so she's 8. She's the sticker sender, so she packs up all the envelopes with the stickers and stuff like that. She gets paid, and the money goes into her savings account. I've got a couple of people who lift at home, who compete every year that help me with some of the data analysis stuff that we kick off to sponsors and use to try and improve the competition. A few things like that, but 99.8% of it is, all me. I've been lifting since, let's go ahead and say 18-ish. So I did some stuff for sports growing up, but like went to a commercial gym for the first time to lift for the sake of lifting when I was about 18. Went with a buddy. I wasn't playing sports anymore in because I graduated high school. Was like, hey, I'm not going to play in college. What am I going to do? We started going to the gym. First couple of years was like, hey, let's do every machine possible, right? Had no idea what I was doing. I don't think I really like squatted until maybe like 3 years in. Realized my ankles weren't mobile enough, and then that led me down a path of like, I think I ended up on T Nation because I read stuff from like Eric Creasy on how to increase mobility, and then I learned, oh hey, my training actually is stupid. It doesn't make any sense, and one thing just kind of spiraled and further and further and further. Ended up lifting at a pretty cool powerlifting gym. So I'm from Northern California, so I went to school up in Chico. I went to a pretty cool powerlifting gym there. They actually had chalk bowls and deadlift platforms and stuff, which was like the first time I'd ever seen that stuff before. And then graduated, turned into coming back home, getting frustrated with gyms continually changing their rules and no, you can't have chalk and hey, that's a deadlift platform, but you can't deadlift on it, and whatever other stuff, and just went, I need something that I can control and do my own thing, which led to the home gym. And it has been the greatest piece to the puzzle for me, my wife, and etc. Through school, through full-time work, through multiple changes, through, I worked full-time and got my master's degree, and I was able to lift in the mornings instead of at night, and, all kinds of stuff. Then we had our kid, and it was like, hey, I can still do that. And now she watches us, and she just deadlifted 114 pounds in my competition at 8 years old. And so she's a monster. And so the gym is a normal, regular part of her life. And so, yeah, so that's kind of my where I am, how I came to, and kind of where I'm at now kind of piece. So,
It's really cool. Yeah, I got a couple of just random questions. So
yeah.
what was the powerlifting gym that I was just curious if I like knew of it or
I'd have to look it up. I don't know if it's in business anymore. A lot of the ones shut down. So when I went to Chico, there was like two or three legit, like good gyms. And then one closed and got bought out by this like real funky, like kind of like a Life Fitness
yeah.
one or whatever. And then I made my way over to the powerlifting gym. And then by the time we had left, Chico State had opened up their own like campus gym, which like slaughtered all the local gyms. And so they might still be there, but I'm not positive. So
I just wasn't sure if it was like Diablo Barbell or any of those people or but my mentor is Jesse Burdick my,
sure,
and he's
it
double
wasn't Jesse. I know that. So yeah,
he's in like Dublin, San Jose. Anyway,
yep,
so I've kind of like and I've been out there for like many, Dan Green's competitions and all that
yep.
kind of. But anyways, it's just kind of curious. And then our daughter's actually doing she's going to do her first full powerlifting meet this Saturday, so we're real excited. And she's
Awesome.
we started off with deadlifts too. So yeah, I think it's great just to kind of see have your family involved and kind of incorporate that as part of like the lifestyle. In terms of like so at least from like what I've seen, it looks like I don't know if you're still running the Juggernaut program and
Hmm.
doing that. What at a certain point, I guess, when did you decide? I guess you had more of like a strength focus to your training, and like because obviously I know, and I don't know if you want to share some of your best lifts because I've seen you hit like
Yeah, of course.
deadlifted in 600 plus and stuff. So it's like not
Yep.
that you're just kind of like you're training
Yeah.
seriously. So
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
curious
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
when you kind of decided to like really kind of pursue maximal strength and really kind of pushing yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, so landed on T Nation when I was still at the commercial gym space. Christian Thibodeau was a lot of what I had read for a while. And, his big thing was like, hey, you can get most of what you want out of compound lifts in some nature. I blame some of the CrossFit movement and stuff for the push away from machines for a while. And I was in that boat of like, machines are bad, right? You don't need to do leg extensions. You just need to squat more, right? And then as I kind of got out of that bubble for a bit and I started watching a lot more of like John Meadows' stuff. And I went, man, this dude isn't powerlifting, but he trained at Westside. He was squatting 500 for reps. I don't squat 500 for a single. Like maybe he's doing something right, right? And so started to kind of expand my horizons a bit and have for quite a while, especially since lifting at home, kind of fell into that power builder approach, right? I want to, look good naked, but I also want to chase down a, big total. And so luckily, I found that those two kind of work together pretty well for the most part, right? I think at one point you trained Larry Wheels. I don't know if you still do or not, right?
Yeah, we're still in contact, and he's
Yeah, okay.
he's focusing more on bodybuilding now. But yeah, we just did a meet at
Yep.
his gym. So yeah, but
Yeah.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
yeah, he's like
So I mean, there's
prime
a
prime example.
yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to be able to, add some size and, still chase down some big numbers. And so that was kind of my goal, was to, look like I lifted, but also actually be able to lift some valid weight. And tinkered for a while, kind of got lost in like, how does any of this work? And the big push was me creating the competition. So the idea behind it was, hey, I think we have a lot of people who lift at home
Mm.
who don't have this target, right? Because they're working, because they got kids, because they got whatever, or they read powerlifting and they go, I don't know what weight class, fed, sleeves or raw or whatever thing I'm supposed to be in, right? I don't want to spend $200 on a hotel room for a weekend to then, whatever it was, right? Uh, and so I reached out to some buddies. I said, hey, this is my idea. Powerlifting meet for people who live at home, make it super easy. They upload to Instagram, whatever. That was as far as my idea was, right? Like it was like one line. And then so we just threw it out there. I made the flyers in Paint, like MS Paint, and people were like, "Hey, this is cool." And they started asking questions like, "Hey, can I squat with the safety squat bar?" And I went, "Sure, why not?" Right? Like I don't care. Then it was like, "Hey, do I need to use calibrated plates?" It's like, no, because I don't have them. So if you do, then I guess I can't compete, right? And so all these things kept turning into like,
It's so
hey, let's just make it as simple as possible, right? And just say, if you squat, bench, and deadlift, we're good, right? We don't need the thousand other pieces to the puzzle that powerlifting has, which is there for a reason, right? You can't have one dude lift with calibrated and another dude not, and one dude hit an all-time world record on a cambered bar or whatever and be like, oh, I'm better, I'm not, right? You end up with a debate between Eddie and Thor where they're like, well, who has the biggest deadlift? Well, yours was and mine wasn't. And, so totally get why there's all the rules and everything. And I just said, this is going to be a little different. Weirdly enough, doing that for other people worked for me as well. I had a target on the calendar that I worked towards, and I said, hey, if I'm going to be the dude who runs this, I got to put up some legitimate stuff. I got to look like I know what I'm doing, and kept pushing the numbers. And so at this point, I'm not going to break any world records or anything like that, but my best squat was 550 in sleeves. Best deadlift was 630, and best bench was right around 370, I think. I should have more in me on bench, but I broke I fractured my calcaneus, so my heel bone, a few years back, and went through PT and everything, and no one ever told me that like I might be lopsided now. And so I walked for like 5 years, like about that much off, and so I was like this kind of thing. And so when I would bench, my whole spine was starting to like it looked like I had scoliosis. I had really tight right trap, but it felt like it was way up here, but it was actually down here, and it was all kinds of weird stuff. And so I couldn't bench without pain. And I tried a whole bunch of stuff and could not figure it out until a buddy of mine, so Chris Mosley, who runs Mutant Metals, which is a gym equipment manufacturer, he used to be a PT assistant, and he was like, "Hey, shoot me a video of you, take your shirt off and do some lateral raises." And so I sent it over, and he goes, "Do you have scoliosis? No. Well, your spine's all jacked up. Okay, why?" And then he asked me like three more questions. He goes, "I think you need a heel lift." And so ended up getting a heel lift, and now everything's been unwinding and getting better. But yeah, so for like, I think I benched 350 the first time before I even lifted in at home, and I've been lifting here for 12 years. So I've added like 20 pounds to my bench in a decade just because it went in and then plateaued, and then now I'm kind of starting to make my way back up. So, but yeah, so 550, 350-ish, 630. So,
Nice. Yeah, and I think like it's good for people to like again, I know like one of the reasons I like your content and I think it holds a little bit more weight potentially that you take your training seriously and not to say that you have
yep,
to deadlift 600 pounds to do a
sure.
barbell review. But I think that there's something to be said if you're like actually using the equipment. And one of the kind of my tenets for training for better or for worse, I come from like that West Side
Yep,
era, like in the early 2000s. I did my first meet in 2006, and I do want to kind of get back to the garage gym thing and why maybe it's a good because I think there's a lot to be said there. But I want to, so we'll circle back to that. But so anyways, I got myself to a point where I did a 900-pound squat in a meet. I did 1,000 pounds in training, and for me, like I just wanted to see like how far like my body could go, and like to me that was kind of like its limit.
yeah,
Kind of like yourself, I just wanted something to. I didn't feel like I was good enough to be like to wrestle in college, so I just wanted to have that like outlet. So I did my first meet at 18,
yep,
and taking my body to that place and like putting like a grand on my back. You learn a lot about like technique that you wouldn't normally learn like when you have that absolute load. And I think
yeah,
that like when it comes to whether it be equipment or training modalities, training principles, and actually I know we were speaking a little bit off air about I had Chad Smith come do a seminar at our gym in New York like many years ago. And
yep,
this is not to dog on anyone, but one that we were just kind of discussing some other coaches that like, oh, I don't think I could hold. We were talking about different techniques, and I'm like, I don't think I could hold X, Y, and Z with this technique. There's, and we're like, and then he kind of was made a comment, was like, well, it's like, yeah, it's like they don't. A lot of people, there's a certain point where, especially when it comes to training advice or equipment and stuff. I think that if it is like kind of rated, or if you're able to do the technique with like a world record weight,
yep,
then it's probably going to be pretty safe and effective, and it's going to kind of work its way like down. And that's kind of like how I've always approached coaching. And you kind of mentioned working with someone like Larry Williams. He came in our door at 19 years old, and he deadlifted more than me at 19. Now,
yeah,
really quick aside. So, like the first time I deadlifted 700, it was at a seminar with Stan Efferding, and Larry Wheels,
yep,
in his youth, was 19 years old, curly hair, comes in, and still he was a big kid. He was like 255, 260 at 19, which is crazy. But I was really happy to hit a 700-pound deadlift. I'm pumped, like that was like a lifelong goal of mine. And with no technique, no coaching, he does it not once, not twice, but three times. I'm just like, some people are just kind of built different. But anyways,
yeah,
he was very coachable. He went on to like, go from like a 1,900-pound total, which is still many of us can only dream to total 1,900 pounds. That was
yeah,
a starting point. And he went on to, break world records. His best was 2370 in 2020. He broke Eric Lilovich's record. So what was really helpful about me, like kind of coaching him and training him for all that time during his powerlifting journey, I learned a lot about like what potentially could work, recovery and different modalities. And like you said, like, we, you don't always have to use a straight bar. You don't always have to, have
yeah,
these very specific things. But anyways, going back, circling back to what I was saying, when it comes to like equipment reviews, I think there's a lot of value and merit of okay, if you're like, if you're squatting, if you're testing a squat bar and you're a strong
yep,
squatter, you're going to have a different like insight than someone that's maybe only doing 135 or just to it's the feel is going to be different. You may not get the whole picture.
yep.
So has there ever been like a situation where maybe you're reviewing a product and then maybe it feels good with like a certain load, but then when you actually put it into practice in your training program. So I don't know if you have any like commentary on that or like what your thoughts are, because I think that I know for myself sometimes, I coming from the West Side background, I have a lot of tools. I like to buy, sometimes
Hmm.
we hoard these things, right? We collect
Yep.
some things collect dust, some things, we use more regularly. But so what are your thoughts as far as in like as far as, creating content, being an authority in the space, as far as what are some things that you look for as far as maybe I guess maybe trusting in the creator. Like how do you know like what's a reputable source for some of the, I guess that's the crux of the question, right? Like how
Yeah.
do you know if someone really knows what they're talking about? Because one of the things that I've seen in the powerlifting space, which really is tough, is that sometimes things may be very popular, or they may not, and then it may not always be like the best information for like the masses,
Yeah.
but and that can be like tough, and that's something I've been trying to check myself more as of late because the bigger you're following, I feel like you have more of a duty to kind of make sure that your
Yeah.
information is not going to harm someone. So, anyways, I know that was like a long
Yep.
thing, but I wanted to provide some context and
Yeah.
about that. So,
Yeah. So, over the last like year or so, I put together like a called a brand guide or whatever you do, right? So what you hand off to companies when you're trying to give them a pitch or something like that. And part of it was just me trying to think through like what makes me different as a content creator, right? So then that way when I talk to these companies and they're like, "Well, we already sent one to XYZ or something," I can say, "Yeah, but," right? And so a big piece was the weight. So one is I weigh, so I'm dieting right now. I'm 240-ish. So 240 is my lower weight, right? Most of the dudes, and I'll caveat this, right? I always tell the companies, average person is like a dude is about 185, right? Probably if they're lucky, they squat 315. And I go, so if you want to sell to the average dude, give it to an average dude who uses it and can talk about it. There's a handful of them. No,
yeah,
I'm buddies with a whole bunch of them. No shame. I go, but you're not going to sell a squat bar to a dude who squats 6, 7, 800 pounds based off of a review of a guy putting two plates on it, right?
yeah,
And then I go, again, I'm not selling stuff, but if it works for me, right, and I can provide some insights and they can see, hey, this dude hit a 500 plus pound squat on it, we're probably good, right? And so that's typically my pitch to a lot of these companies is if you're trying to get in front of an audience who lifts, is chasing down goals, trying to put on size, trying to add plates to the bar, etc. There's not there's not a lot of guys who are in that realm. Brandon Campbell, I don't know if you've talked to him before. He goes by base in Brandon. Brandon's one. I think he squats a little bit more than me. Our deadlifts are maybe back
oh,
and forth a little bit. So Brandon's a good dude. He's strong. He knows his stuff. There's a reason why I watch a lot of his content. There's a couple of other dudes, same thing, who I talk to kind of behind the scenes a little bit, aren't necessarily content creators, but are active in the comments and the DMs and things like that. We share things back and forth. But I know that there's a reason why a lot of people watch my stuff, and it's because I've broken things in the last year or two. Stuff that other guys didn't manage to, and I did. And a good example, I did a whole series on the Nordic benches that do like a handful of different things. So I had the one from Freak Athlete, the one from Tip Bar Guy, the one from Base Blocks, and the one from Shogun. So four of them in my garage at one time, testing them in different ways. So the one from Base Blocks is like I don't know, like $200 or something. It's signed off by Georges St. Pierre, right, UFC fighter. And I went to go do a Nordic on it and literally toppled backwards because the thing is so light. And I'm sitting there going, I mean, I like GSP. He was one of my favorite fighters when I used to watch UFC all the time. And I go, but he doesn't know shit about equipment, apparently, if he's okay with that thing, right? I sent a couple of pictures of it to a buddy of mine. I'm like, dude, look at how thick, like the whole base of this whole thing. I could bend it like with my hands. It just is bad. So you can't take athletes for their word, right? Especially not if they're, an investor in the company and stuff. You can't, maybe he uses it, maybe he doesn't. I don't have any idea. All I've ever seen is some glamour shots of him, doing a Nordic on it in his, apartment or something like that. The one from Shogun, which was real pretty. One of the issues was at my weight and my height,
Yeah.
the lever, I was so far out front that it tips. So I basically could do like 45 or flat, but anything in between tilted, which is not safe, as well as it makes it really hard to do actual Nordic reps when you have no actual stability. And then the tib bar guy one, there was a certain angle where I think it was like 20 degrees, it broke. The pin would break over and over and over and over. So I broke it one time. I actually caught it on video. I sent it to them. I was like, hey, you need to fix this. So they fixed it. They sent me another one. It broke again. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's the 20-degree angle. Like, it's just this one angle. You have to fix it. So they ended up removing that angle entirely and just said, hey, we don't have that angle anymore. Sorry. And then the Freak Athlete one never had that. Freak Athlete was my favorite. I do some testing behind the scenes for them on other things. I've broken a couple of things for them. So Benji, one of the owners, lives in Walnut Creek. So he comes up to my place every once in a while when they've got something in development. And he goes, all right, we're going to see if you can break this or not. So like they just released a belt squat attachment for their Hyper Pro. I had it like 6 months ago or something. And they show up. And I loaded, I think we got like 450 on it or something like that. And I told him, I go, look, I'm not going to use this on a regular basis because I can hit 450 for like 8 or 9 reps and it's not a big deal. But I think we proved that it's at least safe enough for a very gen pop person who might add this into their routine. And so one of the other things I do is because my wife lifts and my daughter lifts, I typically have them try things as well. So I say, you got me, who's 6', 240, who's breaking shit. You got my wife, who's 5'6", 140, and is a much more normal human being. She deadlifts like 220 or something, so she's not weak by any stretch of the imagination, but she lifts because she's supposed to, not because she loves it. And she's also got a very strong like first impression perspective of she goes out and she goes, no, I don't like that. And then she doesn't want to use it anymore. So I tell companies, I go, if it's not intuitive right out the gate, doesn't feel
Yeah.
good, if you got to tinker a whole bunch of stuff, she's not going to use it. She's going to fucking hate it, right? And I go, so you got to figure that one out too, because there's a lot of other people that are in the same realm. And then my daughter's great because I've had people who have, sent me messages and go, hey, I'm, 4'8" and nobody makes gym equipment for me, right? If your daughter's 4 foot and can use it, then now I know I'm good to go, right? So I try and get all three of our perspectives in there, but the idea being that, like I said, for the most part, I'm doing most of it. If I'm breaking something, somebody else is going to break it too. If I don't break it, if I can load up 445s on a leg extension or whatever, most people aren't pushing that kind of weight. People are going to know, even if they're working towards something like that, they're good. So there's a lot of stamp of approval there on my end that I see people waiting for. I've even tinkered with the catchphrase of like, don't buy it until Joe's tried it kind of thing, right? But yeah, so when I'm looking for a content creator, my why I actually started doing reviews was I didn't like the fact that people got stuff, put a video out a week after they got it, and said, "Hey, this is great."
Yeah.
And I went, well, yeah, it's called the honeymoon period, right? Everyone's real happy a week after. If it's like if you get it and if you don't like it after a week, that thing sucks, right? Like that thing's got to be trash. because pretty much everything you're really excited about. Like I'll spend 30 minutes tinkering with something in the first week.
Mhm.
6 months later, if it takes me more than 2 minutes to set it up, I'm not using it anymore, right? So there's all these different things where, my stance was I want to see someone who's put the time in with that individual piece. So a lot of my reviews take 3 months, 6 months, sometimes a year to come out, depending on how complicated the piece is. If I've got something like, let's say, the Hyper Pro that does like 15 things, I'm not gonna. There's no way I could legitimately test all of those functions in a week or two,
Yeah.
right? So my stance is I gotta put it through its paces. I gotta put it away for a while, then come back to it. Do I still like it? Do I not? Does my wife like it? Does my daughter? We have some friends who come over on Sundays sometimes. Are they using it or not? All those different things factor into this. And I think you don't find stuff until you've used it for a while. So that one, I want to see someone who's used something for quite a while. I want to see someone who's like a bare minimum of strength, size, function, something. And then I want to be able to tell that they have some concept around not only the like build function, but like why is something built that way. So like I mentioned cable attachments earlier, right? I see people who like they don't get something like, oh, why is it curved this way or bent that way or whatever? And I go, well, okay, and I'll explain it, but I also sit there in the back of my head and I go, how are you doing reviews when you don't get that, right? Like that pains me that you're sharing your opinion on something and you have no concept of the muscles and the act, how stuff works and all these different things. And so I have more and more over the last year tried to include so my cable attachment series, I went through and listed out my favorites for biceps, triceps, back, etc. I also included like tips and tricks and cues and stuff on how to get the most out of those things. When I did the biceps video, I talked about like, hey, supination, right, is bicep dominant. If you keep it neutral, you're talking about the brachialis. If you're, and I got called out because I mispronounced it. I called it brachialis, and then a few people go, "It's brachialis," and I was like, "Yeah, I should ask my wife. She's a nurse. She would have told me." But and then I even talked about like some forearm stuff and the radio brachialis and including things like that in for me is part of me like saying, hey, like I know what I'm talking about, and I want you to know what you're talking about too, right? Like I want you to leave here being educated on what equipment you buy, why you bought it, how you're going to use it to chase down your goals, right? I don't want you to just buy another bar and shove it in the corner and then go, yay, I bought a bar, right? I want it to help you towards whatever that next step is in your journey. So,
Love it. Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to highlight. I think it is important, like, so if the content creator is someone that is kind of like walking the walk, so to speak, that's going to be like a big green flag for me because inherently they're going to have at least some concept of like programming
yep,
because they're going to be like obviously like, if they have like if they have training goals that are important to them, they're probably going to be consistent with actually using these things, right? They're not just
yep,
like because I think a lot of times what we'll at least again you would probably know better than me, but a lot of times we're getting like first impressions videos, right? We're not really getting
yes,
like and for someone like myself, this is kind of why I thought it might be a good idea for not that I'm like trying to like break into the home gym space or anything like that
yeah,
necessarily, but I think that for me, like I always have like my coach hat on like first. Like that's just kind of like I'm coach before business owner, before content creator, before anything else. That's kind of like that's just like my nature. So like for like you were saying, like there might be certain cable attachments that maybe um orthopedically might fit someone better, right? Like
yep,
you mentioned like, right now I'm like 270, 275, right?
yep,
Certain like bars are not going to like fit me like the same as someone
yeah,
150. Like so
like like
having
like a close grip row or
yeah,
something
it's
like
just
that,
like
right?
and it's like so
Yep,
like even machines and stuff. So like you have so having options that are more accommodating So there's going to be trade-offs. I think that's like, and if especially for people that are in more like hypertrophy type training, there's like benefits to having stability, but there's also benefits to having like freedom of motion, especially as you
Yep.
get older, if you're bigger. So I think that if you like don't lift yourself or you don't have a programming knowledge or anatomy, whatever it is, you might not understand the benefits
Yep.
of some of these things. So, and I was kind of like, not to make the whole episode about this, but it kind of fits into the conversation. So, recently I got, well, I guess more so, even before that, I ended up purchasing the squat saddle, which I was like unaware of that it did not come with. And I think I'm a pretty intelligent guy, but I was not aware it didn't come with any like way of like mounting it onto the bar. So that was kind of scratching my head. Why are they like selling this thing? And at least
Sure.
have, like some sort of, but that was like my first kind of issue with takeover strength, which is with formerly Kabuki strength. And I have a lot of I love a lot of the Kabuki products. I've spent thousands of dollars with that company and I know Chris Duffin really well and a lot of his former employees, taking a bunch of his courses. And yeah, so then the strap bar just kind of came in, and I was very like unhappy with uh, number one, I just felt it was very unbalanced, and if you kind of let go of the handles, it just kind of flips off, falls off your back immediately. And I don't want to have to be fighting a bar down like while I'm trying to squat
Yeah.
a heavy weight. So, anyways, I did like a side by side comparison. It'll probably be out around the same time as this podcast, but I train a lot of groups when I started training people in New York. So someone might have a shoulder injury, or even like with myself, sometimes like I might just be in a training phase where I want to have a different challenge, or I just don't want to put as much
Yep.
stress on my shoulders. So I got a Sorinex. Sorinex is the distributor now. I'm sure it's been out before that, but Dave Draper, very accomplished bodybuilder, came up with this like top squat apparatus. And basically, as you get bigger, it becomes much harder. You might lose some mobility. So a lot of competitive bodybuilders, they might not have the ability. I think even someone like Mike Israetel, like he's got
Yep.
like duct tape on his Smith machine and all these weird things. And and that's just because at some point you get so big, and you might lose that external
Yep.
rotation. And even just for variety. So this like top squat apparatus, I've had like 6 plates on it for good mornings and squats. It works great. Now the only downside is it's kind of like a hard like plastic, but it's super
Yep.
balanced. You let go of it. So like the squat saddle is great. It's comfortable, but like I also want it to be able to like function. So I did like a side by side comparison with the same weight. I did a set of with the strap bar. I did a set with the top squat, and I was able to
Yep.
perform more repetitions easier with the Dave Draper top squat, and it's much cheaper. It's faster to get on. It maybe doesn't look as cool. It maybe is not like it's not like
Sure.
in the. So that was just kind of like one example where if you don't really unless you have experience with the movement pattern, you
Yep.
might not even know what you're feeling, or you might not feel because like to me like I'm again, I've squatted 900 pounds in competition. I know, like, you want the barbell to be balanced when you're
Yep.
squatting. That's like
Yep.
rule number one. You don't want, that's like,
Yeah.
so like for me, this was kind of like just like even if you're not like again, I'm not saying not everyone squats 900 pounds. I understand, but like I
Yeah.
said, that shouldn't be something you're fighting. So, anyways, with that being said, with I think that there's definitely like a point to be taken where if you have someone that takes their training seriously, they kind of understand their body a little bit. I think that they're going to also be able to give you a little bit more like information. Um, so in terms of like my kind of next thing, and I think the freak athlete it was a really interesting one because I see a lot of the utility of it, but also one of the things I know like for myself, it's like I'm someone that likes to kind of have things kind of like ready to go and set. I'm not sure.
Yep.
I've never used it, so I'm not sure how like fat like anything else you get better at like setting it up. I'm sure.
Yep.
One of the things that I'm always kind of looking for in my own training and kind of our garage gym setup is kind of like eliminating steps or eliminating friction. So can you like kind
Yep.
of move from like one exercise to the because that's where you can really it's like, okay, how am I actually going to use this thing? And am I going to be able to like
Yep.
am I going to pull it out? So is there any kind of things or I guess if someone's starting their garage gym and maybe they're kind of like trying to figure out like what purchases to make and things like that. And with your training style, I'm sure it's like you probably do like your main movement, maybe your set your isolation later. So any kind
Yep.
of tips for like I guess saving time because I think that's a big thing, right? If it's gonna take 20 minutes to set up, you're probably not gonna like be doing
Yeah.
it regularly. That's one of the things where it kind of it's some of these setups are very cool and they're like look great for the
Yeah.
videos, but it's like is it actually something you're gonna
Yep.
be doing on a regular basis? So any kind of like
Yep.
tips or suggestions for people that maybe are they're low on time, they want to kind of
Yep.
be efficient in they care about their training, but they might not have like 3 hours to,
Yeah.
set up this like DIY like, situation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so a good example of a terrible one, right, would be so I have have you seen the Voltras, Beyond Power
Yeah,
Voltras?
yeah. I wish I
Yeah.
had 4 grand to get to.
They're very cool. So I have two of them. I'm lucky. They hooked me up. So
Nice.
I took two of those. I put one on the back of each post on the rack. I then set up a bench docked in the back. Do you know what the Radeon like sliding grip bar is? The one that's got
Yeah,
the
yeah,
sliding
yep,
handles.
yep.
So I had that. I hooked them up to that bar with some Pro Lock collars that have carabiners, so it was attached to those. With then put it on spotters, yep, on spotter arms, and I made a chest press type converging chest press. And so the video got like tons and tons of views and comments and all kinds of stuff. And one guy was like, "This is so stupid," and I replied back, "I'm like, yeah, it really is. Like, 100%. This was just a flex of, I wonder if I could do this, and yeah, I did. And okay, here we go. It was like that's 4 grand plus like 600 for the bench, 600 for the rack, 400 for the bar. Like, I'm like, it's like a $6,000 chest press that takes 25 minutes to set up or whatever. I'm like, no, I've never, like, I literally did it once. I'm never doing that again. Um, so yeah, that what's on Instagram and things sometimes is 100% not reality. What I will say is that the cool thing with the Voltras, so the reason why I bring those up and say the Hyper Pro. So the Voltras now they have a bunch of mounts that are coming out for them. So it doesn't just bolt to your power rack. Originally, when I did my first review on it, that was the case. You had to put it on a 3x3 or 2x3 rack or whatever, and that was your only option. Now they've got things like they've got a strap mount. So, I mean, you could attach to a tree if you wanted to or whatever. The one that we're using a lot right now is one that they have in beta, which is they call it like an adaptive bar mount. So the Hyper Pro, you pop up into 45 degrees for back extensions. They've got a post on the front that comes up that's for like hip thrusts and stuff. You're supposed to take the rollers off and throw it on the front. I just pop the post up, throw that adaptive bar mount on, and then the Voltra, and now I've got 200 pounds of cable driven back extension work,
Love
right?
that.
Yeah. So, does it take you a few times to figure out like, hey, how do I do this? Yeah. Does it set up in the amount of time that'll warrant, like my break between, say I'm deadlifting and I'm going to do back extensions after. If I'm smart about it, I'm doing my working sets of deads, and I'm setting up the Hyper Pro and the Voltra. It only takes me a minute or something to get that going, and then I'm back to my set, and then I'm back to that, and kind of thing. So there's definitely a learning curve with something like the Hyper Pro that has as much going on as it does, but like my daughter knows how to use it. So I've got, like I mentioned, I've got some friends who come over on Sundays. They know for the most part how to adjust it and set it up and move it and stuff. It's not too complicated. What I said in my first review for their original Nordic Hyper GHD, and I'll end up saying in a review here soon for the Hyper Pro is like, if you have the space for a commercial back extension, hip thrust,
Right.
etc., buy those. Like, it's not even close, right? I would much rather have those pieces lined up on a wall, ready to go, ready to do what I'm going to do. I don't have that space,
Yep.
so it's either have the Hyper Pro or don't do those movements, right? Before these kind of combo machines started coming out, I had a GHD for a while. It got used sometimes, but it took up so much space and it was just a pain in the butt. So we ended up kicking it to the curb. We had a foldable back extension from Hoist, which was okay. This is way better. So it is for the fact that it is a jack of all trades, it is pretty damn good. It can support my weight. I think I did like a 5 plate hip thrust off the front posts, so 5 plates each side, and it didn't move or shake or fall apart or do anything like that. I've done flat Nordics. I can't do a decline one. I don't know anyone who can other than Benji. He's a psychopath. I think my upper body weighs as much as his entire body, so that probably doesn't help. But but yeah, so my daughter can use it. Friends come over and use it. Like I said, it fits in really well. There is a learning curve. There is some space requirements still because it's very long. So you need that space. What I typically tell people is I go, if you're going to use all of those movements, if you're going to do Nordics, if you're going to do back extensions, if you're going to do hip thrusts and split squats and whatever else you're going to do on it, if you're going to add the leg developer and do leg extensions, the leg curls and stuff, then it's a good piece. If you're going to buy it and you're going to maybe do some back extensions sometimes, no, like what are you doing, right? Like it'd be the same thing. I wouldn't tell you to buy a squat bar if you only squat 315. That's stupid, right? So a lot of what I try and do, like when I wrap up reviews, written, video, etc., is I try and do that piece like, here's the other options on the market. So if you ever go on my website, you'll see that I have a section specifically that says other options on the market, and I'll list out other things. It might be a comparable piece. It might be kind of adjacent, right? I'll make notes around like, should you buy this or not, or who should and who shouldn't. My goal isn't for you to, at the end of it, to go, I'm buying it. It's to know whether you should or shouldn't buy it, kind of thing. And I've had just as many people tell me, hey, thanks for the video, I'm not buying it now, as I've had people who have said, thanks for the video, now I know this is the one I'm buying, which makes me happy. Like to me, I'm doing my job of informing people correctly. If people are like, nope, that's not the right fit, yes, it is, maybe later, whatever kind of thing. So, yeah. So no complaints on the hyper for our space. It's not the right fit for everybody. If, like I said, if you've got dedicated room and space, or if you're not going to use all those movements, don't get it. Something that does 9 things and you only use it for one thing is, you're not getting your money's worth kind of deal. But yeah, so if you're going to try and set up a small space, maximize your time, etc., what I used to do, like when my daughter was first born, I think I did during my warm-ups. So I did my warm-ups while ramping up all my squats. I hit like a set of 5 or something, like a top set, and then would come back down and do like a set of 10 or something. So I got a little bit of everything in there. And then while I unloaded the weights on the bar, I would do whatever my like main accessory was. So like squats was probably like leg extensions or something. I'd go and do like a max set of that, and then I was done for the day. And it took me like 30 minutes. So I don't think you have to get too crazy. I like to get crazy. I like to have a lot of toys. It's fun. It keeps it going. I have no problems with people who are in the same realm. I think as long as they are using it. I have a problem with people who collect for the sake of collecting. But I have no problems with like, hey, I have 10 cable attachments and I use all 10 of them, right? Like when I put up a picture on Reddit of my cable attachment wall, one of the comments was, how, which ones do you actually use? And I replied back, literally all of them, right? Like there's maybe 2 or 3 that collect dust out of like 40 or whatever it is, right? And then some guy's a jackass and he's like, "Oh, now send me a picture of your back." And then so I did. I happened to have a picture of my
Of
back from the
course.
thumbnail, right? I was like, "Here it is. Hope that helps." And he got obliterated. And so, which is funny because like I always laugh. I'm like, if he had said anything else, like if he had been like arms or something, like my arms are okay, right? They don't stand out compared to the rest of my body. I'm definitely a torso heavy, lifter. If he had been like, "Oh, do you have a six pack or something?" No. If he had asked for a pic of my chest or something? No. He picked like the one body part that I'm like super confident in. You're gonna get roasted, dude. Good luck. So, but yeah, so I don't. If you are setting up a home gym and trying to keep it simple, the basics is the basics because it always has been and it works. Chad, you mentioned Chad Wesley Smith earlier. Him and I talked. Well, I think it was last year, and I guess he got in trouble at a Sorenix convention at one point because he was like, "Hey, if I was in the business of selling bars, right, I'd tell you you need 12 different bars." He's like, "I'm in the business of getting you stronger." He's like, "So I know how to get you stronger with a straight bar because for squats you can do back squats, front squats, tempo squats, box squats, pause squats, right? Split squats. Like that's one bar. I didn't even spend much time. I got six variations for you, right? So if you think you have to have that stuff, you're already on the wrong plane, right? A lot of it is for fun. A lot of it is because, like you were mentioning, working around injury, stuff like that. I did a video and an article on how to pick your first specialty bar, and I told people, I go, I have three criteria. One is make a lift easier, right? Two is make a lift more difficult, and three is because you just want to. All of those are okay reasons to buy a bar. Just it should fit into one of those three, right? You should know what you're trying to accomplish with adding something to your space, not just buying it for the sake of because it's a new flashy toy and maybe you'll figure it out later. So,
Yeah, I'll chime in with that too. So like I was having another conversation, I think, with one of our lifters who's dealing with an injury, and I just kind of told him a story where I got a kind of partially torn rotator cuff and kind of re-aggravated it back in 2023, and I was signed up for a meet and I was like not able to deadlift or bench, which was kind of so I was able to squat with specialty bars. But the other thing I did was I did suspended good mornings for like several for most of the prep, and I was able to maintain. So that cycle, I deadlifted 701 pounds in training, and I did very little deadlift training, especially in the beginning
yep,
of the cycle. And I was able to pull 665 at the meet. I was able to maintain a lot of that strength. So I think sometimes also too, just having something for like a rainy day is good if you have the
yep,
space, and just like be okay with. So the I want to kind of circle back to the competition. So I think a lot of this kind of starts off with, and we can kind of close out because I know we're kind of getting over time, but I appreciate your time. Um, I think a lot of these reviews, this information, like you were kind of saying, is like if you have a good handle on like what your goals are and
yep,
what your program is, I think that could also help dictate a lot of these purchasing decisions. And also because like sometimes we can get really like fascinated with this like new thing. And I think the Hyper Pro is a great example where if you're like want to train your posterior chain and you're going to do all these exercises and that kind of fits in your plan. Like for me, like I love glute ham raises, I love back extensions. And Nordics have been like really popular, but if you're not going to do those exercises,
yep,
it doesn't really kind of fit your goals. And same thing with like, we love, barbell training, but if you're just maybe if you're like more of just general fitness or bodybuilding, or if you're more
yep,
endurance person, you maybe you're someone that wants to have like an echo bike, or you know what I mean, like
yep.
that might be more valuable to you. So circling back to the competition, and I really like what you said about like really kind of keeping the barrier of entry low.
Yep.
Because I think even with powerlifting, sometimes like a lot of like we run our meets through RPS, so like there's no entry fee. There's a lot of different divisions. So I think that's really great as far as like just for people to have like that. So for me, if people like want to enter the competition next year, um, I guess do you have any advice for people that maybe are unsure like what their goals should be or kind of getting started with that? because I do think that like I know for myself, like one of the reasons why I still compete, because I've been kind of slowing down a little bit. I've been kind of actually messing
Yep.
around more with strict curl. I've been kind of
Yep.
powerlifting's been a little bit on the back burner. I still squat, bench, and deadlift, but just not. I kind of am at a point where like um going back to like a 900-pound squat and trying to be lighter
Mhm.
might be like worth it. But I do think so. Like for me, like I've been entering these strict curl competitions, and I think something like like the garage gym competition is great because for a lot of people, maybe it's a little bit intimidating, or maybe there's a cost barrier there.
Yep.
People maybe are getting started and they're really like as far as doing things safely, and they want to have a goal. Like, what advice would you have some people maybe if they like want to get test their 1 hour maxes for the first time or do your
Yep.
competition? What would you
Yeah.
say?
Yeah, so yeah, the barrier to entry thing. So my background, my master's is in instructional design, and so which is around like how do people learn and intake information, how do they retain it, how do they pull it back out and use it kind of thing. And so a big piece of that puzzle there is the barriers to entry, right? So one of the ones I reference most of the time is so organ donation, right? So in the US you have to opt in to be an organ donor, right? For so it's like on your driver's license card. We have something like a 20% participation rate or something like that. You go to other countries where you have to opt out of organ donation, and they have an 80% participation rate. So the difference between checking one box is enough to completely flip that piece of the puzzle. So
Okay.
they've asked people, right? Like, hey, are you an organ donor? And sometimes they're like, yeah. And then they look at their card, they go, oh, I guess I'm not, right? Or they're like, well, I was gonna be, but it was a pain in the butt or something. And like, you mean like just going like this? What's the pain in the butt? Like, there are some groups who on purpose, like, because religious beliefs and things like that are like, hey, that's not my jam. Cool. This is not the reason why we have such drastic differences, right? It's literally the extra step. So the graduate competition, so we typically in-house call it the GGC. The GGC was literally like, can I remove as much of that as possible? And so the nice thing there is I mean, we have people who are like, hey, what's powerlifting? And they participate, right? They could do CrossFit, they could be cross country runners, they could be whatever. If they've got something that allows them to squat, bench, and deadlift, we say you're good, right? And so I've had people over the years that are like, I don't want to power lift, but like this sounded interesting and I tried it. And then now I'm hooked and they're like signing up for local meets all over the place, right? Which is one of the reasons why Travis, so Papa Bear Rogers, is all about it. When he first started participating, he was like, dude, this is how you get people into the sport, right? You remove all this nonsense. You give them a little taste. They have some fun. They engage with the community. They maybe win a prize. So we hand out free coaching feedback as well. So if they want to. So during the submission form, you can check a box that says, I would like my lifts reviewed by a coach. Coaches, I connect them to somebody via email. They send them their links, and then the coach goes through and goes, hey, your squat was blah, 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 blah. Try this, try that, this kind of thing. Your bench, this thing, whatever. I brought up Basement Brandon, so Brandon Campbell earlier. He was a coach this for the spring as well. And he went through and did like a full video walkthrough, hey, here, this kind of thing, etc. So, there's a ton of opportunities. We do a free newsletter and stuff as well, where we have some coaches throwing some training tips every couple of weeks. And it could be something like, should you train your biceps as a powerlifter? Should you train your calves? To how to eat better, how to whatever, how do you peak for a competition? What does peaking even mean, right? Like all this different stuff. We've got one of our coaches that I call our like resident powerlifting expert. She's been judge in like 12 different feds and competed in a whole bunch and won competitions alongside guys like Dan Bell and stuff like that. And she's a monster. And so she writes some of like the beginner articles, what is RPE and, how do you use that? She wrote one on like the difference between knee sleeves and knee wraps, who should consider wraps versus not, whatever, comparing the GGC to a, normal meet, all this different stuff, trying to demystify it, but also make sure people understand like, hey, this could be your only thing, or you could go try the real deal, right? Maybe you want to. There's no push or, whatever, but like it's there. So if you're trying it out, the cool thing with the GGC at this point, originally it was, we said only home gyms. Now I don't really care. I'm like, hey, I had too many people who participated anyway from a commercial gym, etc. And then they were like, well, why didn't it count? And I just went, hey, the whole point is to be inclusive. I want more people to participate. So I don't really care if you're in a commercial gym or a school gym or whatever. You just lift and we're good. Um, so whoever you are, wherever you are, we've had people in France and England and Germany and South America and different stuff participate as well. Um, it's free, like I said, free coaching feedback, free all this resources, all this different stuff. There's I've only seen a couple of times where someone decided to be a dick and came on and was like, "Hey, that's your squat's too high" or something, right? Which happens. So somebody this year put up something about that, and then a handful of people had the correct response, which was awesome. They were like, "Hey, yeah, last year I participated for the first time. My squat was high. I didn't know it. I didn't know it until I submitted a video of me squatting high, and then one of the coaches told me, "Hey, your squat was high, right?" So this is an opportunity for people to just step outside of their comfort zone a little bit, get a little feedback, and then improve as lifters, right? Over and over and over and over and over again. And so the guy, I commented and kind of give him the business like, hey, uh, look, I want it to be inclusive. If you squat high because you have to, because your knees suck, because your back hurts, whatever, that's cool. But if you do it because you don't have any idea, if you're going to be a dick, you're going to scare people away from participating who could get that feedback, right? Instead of welcoming people in and someone says, hey, FYI, your squat's a little high. This is how we fix it. And then they don't go a decade ruining their lift and never have the opportunity to get better, right? So it goes back to, like I said, when I made it in the first place and then realized how much it helped me, trying to help other people have that same realization and move forward, be better lifters, chase down their own goals, whatever that looks like. Yeah, so it should be real easy to participate. You show up during the week of, we let you lift any days during that week. So it's like it opens on a Saturday and closes on the following Sunday. You can squat one day, bench another day, deadlift another day if you want to. So if you happen to squat, like today I squatted before our call, you can squat on Monday, you can bench on Tuesday, deadlift on Thursday, upload the whole thing on Friday. You fill out a quick submission form, and that's it. Then you're in. We gave out $17,000 in prizes just in this spring event alone, from bars and benches to shirts and various things. Chad gives up a year of Juggernaut AI and all kinds of good stuff. And then worst case scenario, if you participate, I donate on your behalf to a nonprofit. So I donated to Special Olympics in the spring. So we raised, what did it come out to? It was like around $800 or something like that this time. We're just shy of the $10,000 total mark for Special Olympics since 2018. And then we do another nonprofit in the fall. So we do an event in the spring and an event in the fall. So there's 2 events every year. It's totally free. We donate to nonprofits. There's free prizes. free coaching feedback, tips, tricks, etc. So, and most people are probably already lifting. So, yeah, I have not yet heard a really good argument for why you don't participate. Because sometimes people are like, well, I'm not peaked. And I go, okay, it's a it's a real simple competition, right? Like no one's saying you have to smash a 2,000 pound total,
Yeah.
right? Uh, I've had people say like, "Oh, I haven't squatted with a straight bar in a long time." Do you squat with a safety squat bar or a cambered bar, or do you belt squat? Like you can submit like that's all good. Like we're cool. Yeah. So there's a like I said, I have yet to have anyone legit like the first valid one was someone that was like, "I'm an accountant, and during the spring is tax season, and I don't have time for anything." I went, "Oh, cool, okay," which is one of the reasons why we actually made the fall event. So I even give people the opportunity to keep all their stuff private because we had somebody one year, a girl was like, "Hey, I had an issue with an internet stalker. If I put anything up that has my name connected to it at all, he'll find it, and then I have to start all over." And she's like, "I really want to participate, but I can't do that." And I was like, "All right, give me a couple of days, I'll figure out something." And we went back and forth. I was like, okay, if I have a box on the submission form that says, don't publish my results, and then when it goes up, it just says private for all the, personal info, is that cool? She goes, yep, that'll work. So I've tried real hard to be real accommodating for the vast majority of people. And yeah, so it's not the competition for someone who's trying to set a world record. It's the competition for everybody else. So, but with that, Travis just hit a 2106 total or something monstrous in it. Lee Steely, I think is his last name. He was sponsored by Kabuki for a while before they kind of turned into whatever else. And he hit like a was it 1860 or something, and he rated it like an RPE 8 or something. Kyle, I forget his last name off the top of my head. He's down south of me in California. His Instagram is Mr. Squatapony, is like close to a 2,000 pound total every time he participates, and that's without any like bench shirt or anything like that. He's just straight raw lifter. So I mean, there's some monstrous dudes. I think one of the females who competed this year cleared 1,000 pound total, which is a legit set of lifts for a female.
It's kind of
So
for anybody.
yeah. So yeah, there's if you're a monster lifter, there's still opportunities for you. But I spend most of my time focused on that group down here. So
Yeah, I want to, and we'll close. This was great. I really appreciate your time. I definitely would love to do it again. I definitely want to also
yep,
plug your stuff. A couple of things I definitely want to highlight because, I think that when we kind of get into lifting, a lot of times we're doing this for like self-improvement, right?
yep,
But yeah, it does kind of hurt me when I see, like you said, some of those comments and stuff when people are like, it's like if they're like just they're not even trying to be helpful. It's just kind of like,
yep,
like how dare you like kind of do this thing that like and it's just like guys, it's like we want people to like get involved. It's like so like
yeah,
backwards. So yeah, I think that like using like you don't have to like knock your first like whether it's garage gym competition or you don't need to knock your first one out of the park. And I think that
yeah,
like one of the things that we try to do with our like our live meets too is like if the lifter like makes a mistake where it's a borderline call, like we generally will try to help them be like, hey, this is what you did wrong. Because a lot of times,
yep,
unfortunately, some of these refs like kind of have a stick up their butt, and it's even worse on the internet when you don't actually even need to interact with the person. It's just so easy. It's like, yeah, it's
yeah,
and if it was like an inch, like a little high or whatever, or if they like kind of hitched their deadlift or didn't quite
yep,
pull their bench, their butt came up a little bit, it's like they're putting in their effort, they're trying, and then if and again, there's
yep,
like a tasteful like way to do it, and there's like and so I really
yep.
kind of the coaching aspect, and again for the fall competition, if there's I'd love to whether it's donating some, I have an author do a bunch of different books or whatever, or donate some prizes or whatever. I'd love
Awesome.
get involved in some way. And if you ever wanted to, add a curl, division, if you're interested. So I've been that's been my big kind of push for 2025 because I'm getting like old and grizzled and
Cool.
slowing down with the powerlifting. But yeah, I think that like there's something for everyone, and I love it's like, hey, like, yeah, do a safety bar, do a pause, do a
Yep.
touch and go, whatever, do a shirt, and even with Travis too. I think I loved, I'm an equipped lifter,
Yep.
kind of. That's what powerlifting was before.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
you had to go to special. A lot of people don't know you had to go to special federations to lift raw. That was not like really a thing. So I love like seeing like he's been kind of getting some of his guys into that. And I think my whole thing is too, like whether it's you're lifting in your garage or you're doing this federation, whatever, it's like we're all trying to do the same thing. So whether you're
Yep.
wearing a bench shirt or you're wearing knee wraps or you're wearing knee sleeves, if you walk your squats out, if you don't walk your squats out, it's like
Yep.
we're kind of like missing like the plot here. I think that's what
Yep.
the kids say now. So we're all, so I think it's great that you're providing an opportunity, even whether it's a virtual platform or not. And it's obviously, it looks like from my view, the community is growing. So
Yep.
I know that you have a couple of different Instagram pages and popular YouTube channel. So where can people find more about the competition and more about gray matter lifting?
Yeah. If luckily picking a unique name like both of those, if you Google search gray matter lifting, it shows up. If you try and have a more generic name, sometimes it doesn't. I remember John Meadows talking about that when he had Mountain Dog training, right? It was like, you don't find me on accident kind of thing, right? So, so gray matter lifting, Google search it, you'll find whatever you want. It'll be my website. It'll have my socials on there as well, newsletter, etc. So you can follow me however you want. I normally post kind of some of the YouTube like short clips that I pull from the long form stuff on Instagram, some training footage, maybe some pictures and stuff like that on Instagram. YouTube and my website are really kind of the like main like here's my new content stuff. And then if you want any of the behind the scenes details, the newsletter is the place to be. I can share more there without getting in trouble sometimes with some of the companies I work with. It's easier to share some, hey, maybe don't buy that yet because this is gonna come kind of thing. And then yeah, and the newsletter has updates from the gray matter thing, the garage and competition piece, as well as Reddit, and then any kind of other stuff I see. So discount codes, sales, etc., whatever it might be. If you own a home gym and you want to be a part of the biggest home gym community, that is on Reddit or Home Gym. We have regular AMAs and all kinds of good stuff there. You'll see me pop in and out at various times. You may not necessarily recognize that it's me pulling a lot of strings back there, but yeah, we're doing stuff. And then Garage Gym Competition, same thing. Google search Garage Gym Competition, it'll show up. You can participate via Instagram, YouTube, Reddit. Is that it right now? Oh, and Facebook. We might at some point add TikTok or something. I'm not sure. We'll see. But yeah, and so pretty easy to participate. Whether you're just kind of following along because you want the free info, that's cool. Whatever, no big deal. Or you want to actually participate. I know I've had people who have followed me for years that go, okay, fine, you got me kind of thing, right? And so that's cool. But yeah, I try and again, my goal is to help people be better home gym athletes in general. So that's where all that stuff comes from. The community aspect is on Reddit. The equipment ownership and understanding how to use it piece is for the gray matter piece. And then the actual putting it to use to track down your goals is the competition. So those are kind of three pieces of the puzzle. So yeah, that's it. Uh,
Awesome. Well, definitely give Joe a follow. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, please give it a 5-star review and please share it. And yeah, like definitely we'll be, get involved and give you some more information as I guess the fall competition
yep.
uh closer. And thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, stay strong and we'll see you soon.